A leadership shakeup on the No on Issue 1 campaign. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. Changing campaign leadership in the final weeks of a campaign is never a good sign, but that's what opponents to Issue 1 have done. The abortion rights opponents have selected a new leader. As Cleveland.com first reported, the move came as Governor DeWine became worried about the effort to defeat the abortion rights amendment. He's brought in a Nevada consultant with ties to the governor's political team to lead the group called Protect Women Ohio. This comes as the No on Issue 1 campaign has struggled with a clear message and only this week begins a limited TV ad campaign. Gene Krebs, you have run for office. You have been involved in campaigns. What does a change in leadership, basically 7 weeks before an election, what does that mean? How do you see this?
Oh, look, I can handle my enemies, but Lord spare me from my friends. Okay? It has a hard time being cohesive. It needs to be coherent. And when you have this many Republicans as what we have dominating the State House, when we form a circular firing squad, it's a much larger circle. And being Republicans, we have access to big guns with high calibers. Now, the Democrats have a much smaller circular firing squad, and they only throw spitballs at each other, which they later pick up and recycle.
Yes, of course.
But my point here is that it's because there's so many of us, it is intrinsically difficult to have a coherent structure and message when you have so many voices.
Is this because the polling shows that roughly 55 to 60% of the average person supports abortion rights with restrictions, and the abortion rights opponents cannot win on that issue alone? So they have to figure out what's going to work.
Exactly. And they're going to go to this, they tried in Issue 1 to scare people by, going with the parental rights stuff and all that. Well, you can only go to the well so many times. And then when you're proven to be wrong, then you tend to run out of steam.
On the other side, it is only 7 weeks, or so until Election Day. But this campaign's fairly short, Herb. It really got going, I guess, officially in July when the amendment was approved for the ballot. So changing leaders basically halfway through a short campaign, is that necessary? That could work, right?
No. I mean, the more fundamental thing, and I think Gene was alluding to it, is what is their message? And they've been throwing lots of things against the wall, hoping something would stick. And some of the people involved in the previous leadership team would do anything and everything in order to win, including distort, lie, mislead, and all of that. And that's not a winning strategy on this issue. And so the real question becomes now, what do they say about to convince the voters to vote no? And and now you have the governor putting his prestige on the line. You have the Catholic Church having made some substantial contributions, and I think, they might be a little uncomfortable with the no holds barred campaign where everything, it's going to take away parental rights, trans, abortion, your children are not, I mean, those are all scare tactics, as Gene was saying, and I think that's going to backfire on them.
Now, the first ad that is coming out this weekend. It's going to air during the Ohio State Notre Dame game. It is an ad. It features Donald Trump saying, "We're not going to run these ads because we don't want to. We're not for either side,
no free air
unless
time.
they make news. Really, we're not going to run ads on the show for either side." But this ad has Donald Trump saying, if Issue 1 passes, in the 9th month, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb of the mother. That does not happen. And first of all, they induce labor. Nothing is ripped out of the womb of the mother. And late-term abortion is extremely rare, only happens when the life of the mother is in danger or the fetus is no longer alive. But yet they keep hanging their hat on. And that is legal under the heartbeat law. There is a health exception.
Yeah. So about 10 to 11% of the general population thinks this is a true statement, and this is their statement: abortion is murder. That's it, period. No exceptions, nothing else, anything beyond that. So for my Republican people to come up with a response, this goes back to what Herb, a coherent message. Well, you've got a significant portion of them who vote in primaries say abortion is murder, no exceptions ever, to those who go, well, rape and incest. How about for the life? How about under extreme medical situations? No. So you have that going, you have that tension going on. And so I think the other broader question will be, if issue 1 passes, what do the Republicans propose that are serving in the State House now to go on? And I think they're going to go on the May or the March primary ballot with something, because only Republicans will be coming to the polls, because the Ds will have no presidential primary. Sherry's not going to have a primary. It will be a Republican state Senate primary, a U.S. Senate primary. So I think they're looking at going to come back with that. The question is what? I don't think they can agree on anything.
Yeah. But I've heard the same thing. And one of the things they're talking about then is coming in with a more moderate constitutional amendment that might be more restrictive than the one the voters would have approved. But look, they have so many people on their side who would say, well, wait a second, what are you doing? No abortions whatsoever. And the only people who would benefit by putting another amendment on the ballot are, in fact, the campaign, the media people. I mean, it'll be another source of raising money.
But if you look at the first issue 1, the 60% threshold question in August, that basically lost, 60-40, give or take, 57.
57, 43.
If this follows the polls and is by the same margin, can they really go back to the polls again after losing basically 55, 45, 60, 40 in 2 straight elections? I know they can, but will they?
Okay, I gotta stop laughing for a moment, because on election night in August, Matt Huffman, president of the Senate, flat out said, oh yeah, we're gonna go back on the ballot on this. Look,
who's going to give money to that campaign to lose 60-40 again?
Yeah, but see, so here's the language. There are 17 words they could propose to go to the Ohio Constitution that would get 83% approval. The state may regulate abortion except in cases of rape, incest, and the health of the mother. 17 words. Leaves a role for the General Assembly, leaves a role for the medical community, leaves a role for the governor, the Department of Health. It allows for the regular
How would
process.
Democrats take that, Herb?
Oh, I think Democrats and the broader public would hear instantly, and certainly would be told, you're saying they can regulate it so it could be 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks? No. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what Ohioans support. This is another desperate attempt by people trying to confuse the voters. And so I don't think that's a very credible way for them to proceed. And I sort of agree with Gene. I mean, going back again after you've lost the first time and also lost on the constitutional amendment requirements, that sounds a bit desperate. And it's basically saying, we don't trust the voters. And then related to that, what if, in fact, the recreational marijuana passes? What do they do next year in the General Assembly?
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. One more question on this. This ad buy this weekend, it's $94,000, I believe. That's tiny.
Yeah.
You're basically going to get one ad, and they're running these ads in games in Cleveland, Cincinnati, Youngstown, Toledo, but not in Columbus because they say it's too expensive and you need more advance notice to run in Columbus.
Pawn shops do bigger ad buys.
So what does that say? They're hurting for money?
I'd say they're hurting for money. They're trying out a message. Pick one of your things. But once again, if they're trying out a message, it means they've not gone through all the ordinary process of focus groups and polling.
Notre Dame, it's a wise place to put an ad. You assume there might be a lot of Catholic voters watching Notre Dame, even if they're not Buckeye fans, right?
Sure, but again, keep in mind here that they don't even have, according to every poll I've seen, they don't have unanimous support or overwhelming support among Catholic voters. And that amendment also provides for protection with respect to birth control. And, it's not a radical amendment.
And what Herb just brought up, the bit about the birth control thing. So there's been some chatter by some Republicans. Nobody's called for that to be touched. Well, Marsha Blackburn out of Tennessee directly did, and Representative Gene Schmidt from Claremont County in the State House directly called for, maybe we ought to regulate birth control next time, is what she said. And I've talked to a large number of people who are nominally pro-life, but they go, there's too much crazy going on, and they do not trust this General Assembly.
All right, the wait and hurry up. Ohio redistricting process is now moving quickly towards a resolution for the next election. Republicans on the Redistricting Commission unveiled their maps this week. The maps for Ohio House districts and Ohio Senate districts look a lot like the current maps. They heavily favor Republican candidates and, in theory, would maintain GOP supermajorities. Democrats say they again failed to meet the requirement that the maps reflect Ohio's partisan makeup. Republicans say they do reflect Ohio's politics, and they point out that Governor DeWine won Ohio with 60% of the vote last year. Herb Asher, do they have a point? Mike DeWine won 60% of the vote. This is a red state.
This is a non-issue in the sense that no matter what the General Assembly does and no matter how it gets challenged, it will be approved by the Ohio Supreme Court by a 4-3 vote. So this is just more of the same. And they'll get through it as quickly as they can, and we'll go through the court proceedings, and then these districts will be declared constitutional, and we'll have an election using them, and the Republicans will have supermajorities once again. The real next step on redistricting would be if indeed we have a constitutional amendment down the road on redistricting.
Gene, what goes on behind the scenes as this in the last several months as these maps were, they're looking again at these maps and presenting them again?
Incumbent protection, followed by not having incumbents have to move, followed by incumbent protection.
So a lot of phone calls, a lot of email, well, maybe not emails, but certainly a lot of phone calls, right?
Probably not. Just, we'll take care of you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about all the conversation will be. No, don't worry, Bob, Jim, Sue, whoever. We'll take care of you.
Your district will not change much. You won't have to have you won't have a tough election.
Tell the spousal unit you will not have to move.
Democrats calling as well, Herb. I assume if you're a Democrat state senator or a Democrat state rep and you have one of these districts, you could argue has been packed, but you're safe. Are you calling to say, you know what, this is okay?
Yes and no. Every incumbent loves to have a safe district. That's Republican incumbents and Democratic incumbents. But Democrats would also like to be a little bit more relevant in the General Assembly. And the only way they can be more relevant is if they had more seats. Not a majority, because they're not going to get a majority, but just the more seats that are really in play. And so I think Democrats are a little cross-pressured. I was involved in a redistricting thing 15 years ago, and I can tell you there were many Democrats who were saying, don't touch my district. We want change, but protect me.
Protect me.
Well, I was at a forum one time and I asked Pat Tiberi, congressman at the time, and Joyce Beatty, a congresswoman, still congresswoman, if they would support redistricting reform if it made their districts more competitive. Tiberi said yes right away. Congresswoman Beatty was a little bit more hesitant to say yes for sure, because she's got a very safe district.
Yeah.
This has been kind of anticlimactic. The only drama was who was going to be the Republican co-chair on the commission. It turned out to be Keith Faber. Does this add to the effort to change this process, or does the eyes start to glaze over and hurt the effort to change the process next year and the amendment ballot issue?
If they had called me up and asked me for my opinion, I would have said, don't give the gerrymandering folks any more ammunition than you absolutely need to do. Don't give them don't do such lopsided districts. Take the moral high ground, take a little bit of their thunder, have confidence in your message, in the quality of your candidates, in your policy. When I was there, I was told by an operative, I said, so what is our goal with the redistricting? He says, I want 99 House seats with a 53 index. Now, they're winnable by a Democrat. So whoever he said, look, we have better candidates, we have better policy, and I have every confidence that we can take those seats.
You're leaving one thing out.
What's that?
We have a hell of a lot more money.
Yes, a lot more money.
Yeah. All right, we'll see how this goes. Issue 2 on November's ballot, if passed, would change Ohio law to legalize recreational marijuana for anyone over the age of 21. The campaign has been pretty quiet so far. This week, the Ohio Chamber of Commerce came out against legal marijuana for fun. The chamber says it would lead to increased absenteeism for employers and also hurt workplace safety. U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown was asked this week if he supported legalizing recreational marijuana. he said he's unsure. He says he's heard from supporters and critics and will decide in the coming weeks. He says he does support a change in federal law to allow banks to accept proceeds from marijuana businesses in states where it is legal. Herb Asher, what would it mean to the pro-legalization of marijuana campaign if the state's top Democrat came out against it?
It would be very harmful. That would be used by all of the opponents and said, look, the #1 Democrat in Ohio is opposing it. So I think there'll be a lot of pressure on Sherrod from the people who want to legalize recreational marijuana. But I think Sherrod's making a political calculation. Obviously, they all do.
What is that calculation? What is he concerned about?
Is he likely to lose more votes by supporting it than not? My guess is by the time he's on the ballot in 2024, it's not going to make much difference one way or the other. And it'll be interesting to see what happens this November. We have August 8th election. Campuses weren't in session. Students were, at home or whatever. Now we're going to have an abortion amendment and a marijuana amendment. And I sort of suspect, although I don't see the activity yet, we're going to have unbelievable turnout on college campuses throughout Ohio. And it'll be overwhelmingly in favor of reproductive rights and recreational marijuana. And when you start thinking about it that way, you might say, in the long term, maybe I really should support it, because these are my natural supporters anyway.
Gene, when it comes to who supports legalization of marijuana, it kind of crosses party lines in a lot of ways. But Sherrod Brown needs working class folks from Mahoning County and Northeast Ohio to support him to win re-election. Do those folks support legalizing marijuana?
Yes, and to look at, so Brookings did an interesting analysis, the 2022 Maryland legalization results, and the area that supported legalization of marijuana more than almost any other area of Maryland was what borders West Virginia. And, I couldn't win a primary in that part of Maryland, okay?
Because it's so conservative.
It's so conservative, but it was like 2-1. So when people say, "Oh, you country folks, you're not going to vote for this because you're good and wholesome," you don't make generalizations about my people.
Why does that kind of go against the conventional wisdom?
Because when you know how one person thinks, you know how one person thinks. Mm-hmm. People can have health issues that it's a variety of things, but it's also. And the other thing I do want to clear up, a lot of people say that marijuana is the gateway drug. The gateway drug, 99.95% of the time, is tobacco. It's not marijuana.
Yeah. And, the chamber's argument, if we legalize it, we're going to have more workers who can't pass drug tests to get a job, and we'll have more injuries on the job. That sounds very logical on the face of it. But we forget people are already smoking. They're smoking marijuana. They get it in a variety of different ways. It's not a rare kind of thing. And in some cases, in buying it, they're supporting a lot of other illegal activities. So some people have argued, let's try to take the cartels, let's try to take the criminals out of it. I'm not sure we'll ever really completely do that, but I agree with Gene. There are many more people smoking marijuana who would not be our image of who the smokers are. It's not all just West Coast hippies who are smoking.
And the supporters of legalization, their campaign is regulate marijuana like alcohol, and workplaces now deal with alcohol-related issues, including absenteeism and workplace safety. So those arguments are going to be countered by the supporters by saying, look, workplaces handle alcohol, they can handle legalized marijuana.
My big concern, and I've been saying this on the show now for about a dozen years, is the candification of marijuana. That's the only thing. And so what
Gummies, you mean?
Gummies, candy bars,
yeah.
all that stuff. Kids getting into that. One candy bar apparently has like 12 different servings in it. Okay. I'm hopeful that that this can be regulated such that is totally suppressed, and that's my hope.
Yeah, there has to be good product labeling. Otherwise, there will be so many unintentional consequences. The funniest story some years ago was Maureen Dowd.
Yes.
She
wrote a column about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, purple dinosaurs were crawling all over her.
Yeah.
Well, no, she went to Colorado, bought a brownie, ate the brownie, and was really just out of it the next couple of days. And she said, I didn't know. I had friends who smoked, and they said, "Well, doesn't she know that a brownie has it's to be used 12 different sessions?" And
Yeah.
I said, "I didn't know that.
Yeah.
If I had given a brownie, I'd have said, well, that's good. Let me have another one."
Any surprise that the chamber came out against this because there is money to be made here? Are there not marijuana retailers that are proud Chamber of Commerce members?
Of course, of course.
Well, not yet. Not yet. But it goes back to, look, their concerns are legitimate, I believe, as far as workplace safety. I can really understand. But this is why as this thing proceeds through the General Assembly, I think we'll have some flexibility to draft. Basically, for the Chamber of Commerce, their HR rules can be drafted by the General Assembly. Normally, HR rules are drafted based upon the law. Here, they can go ahead and have the law drafted as their HR.
After Maureen Dowd's publicity about what happened to her, the Colorado legislature actually got active and started doing product labeling laws.
All right, our last topic. Ohio's fracking industry is nearly 10 years old. It has brought revenue to oil and gas producers, to landowners who have leased their land for drilling, and to local governments, mainly in eastern Ohio. It has also increased traffic on rural roads, increased noise in quiet settings, and it now enters a new phase. The state is in the process of approving drilling leases under state-owned land, in particular under state parks. Salt Fork State Park is a prime site. It is huge, and it is surrounded by very productive wells on private land. Drillers now want to take advantage of what's under the state park. Gene Krebs, what do you make of fracking? Has it been good for Ohio? Is it just there? What's going on?
You're going to hear a variation. Before on the show, I've said there's no pretty way to make electrons. There's no pretty way to make gasoline or other fuel or natural gas. And unless you're Amish, and once again, I'm 1/8 Amish by heritage, unless you're Amish, you can't. You have to acknowledge that if you want to drive a car, if you want to have, you have to have some amount of this going on. The question is, how ugly do you want to have it be? Can you make it as pretty as you possibly can? And as long as they stay out of sight, out of mind, if you don't see them, do they really exist type of thing. But it's going to be up to how strict will the state be on the regulations as far as visualization will show up in the view shed.
At the state parks, you mean?
At the state parks.
And not just visual things, but things can go wrong and pipes can explode and all of that. So the question really becomes, how sound is the science? How severe or how strict will the state regulation be? And Ohio's record of regulation is a very mixed record. So the question becomes, who will be able to say to the energy industry, no, this is not appropriate, or there's too many wells? And so I think people who are concerned about this have a legitimate concern. Many years ago, when fracking first started, Ohio State has had at the time the Cooperative Extension Service, now called Ohio Extension, paid for by the state in part and by counties. And they decided they were going to help small farmers understand what it means to start negotiating with major oil companies, energy companies from Texas, so they don't give away their property for nothing. And that was, I think, a wonderful public service to perform. We got a lot of blowback. Why are you empowering these farmers to ask us the questions?
Who gave you the blowback? State lawmakers?
Some state lawmakers and the energy industry through the administration and through the lawmakers. And luckily, many of the lawmakers said, no, this is what we pay the Extension Service to do.
Just to educate
Yeah.
my people.
Drilling under state parks, you mentioned the view might be disturbed. I mean, we have not had a huge accident here. We've had a couple big ones, like the methane leak, and there was an evacuation not too long ago, but there hasn't been a huge spill that we know of.
Right.
In 10 years, knock on whatever this is. Why not drill under the state park if they can do it safely?
Well, you can, and you should, but two things to keep in mind. One, once again, there's no pretty way to do this.
It's going to be noisy.
It's going to be noisy, but you know what? If you ever look, I can get up on a really high moral horse on this. I planted 10,000 trees by hand. Every year we sequester enough carbon personally for 147 families, okay? But if you take one airline trip anywhere you've blown your whole carbon budget right there. So if you're going to complain about fracking, don't drive a car to the protest. Don't take a plane to the conference. No. Once again, there's no pretty way to make.
Nobody's a purist. Nobody has a zero carbon footprint. So you can complain about fracking and you can still drive your car and take a plane or whatever. And the real question is, why do we need to frack in state parks? Have they run out of all the other sites? I know they're going to do the roadside strips and all of that, but what about the role that state parks play for the citizens of Ohio?
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots. And Gene Krebs, we'll let you go first.
It's going to be very apparent that the GOP is going to need ranked choice voting soon, because I've had two sources confirm for me that Vivek Ramaswamy has a plan B, that if his presidential campaign implodes, he's going to run for governor. That makes 4 candidates, and I've been told of a prominent business person in the state who's going to throw his hat in the ring. That makes 5. The winner could get 22%.
You are a proponent, one of the leaders of the
I
ranked
am
choice.
very much a proponent, and this is a prime example why.
All right, Herb.
If the reproductive rights amendment passes, which I think it will, we will see next year many more amendments, and not just on redistricting. We'll see some people talking about, let's put into the Constitution gun safety proposals. It really should not be in the Constitution. It should be in state law, but the legislature goes in the opposite direction. There's so many things that the legislature is almost inviting people to go to the constitutional route.
All right. My off-the-record comment is, of course, Herb's not wearing a tie. I'm not wearing a tie today. Gene is. He's a Republican. He has to wear a tie. But we are going by way of the U.S. Senate and Senator Fetterman. Next time we'll wear hoodies on the set. No. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. Continue the conversation on Facebook and watch us anytime at our website, wosu.org. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.